Shimah was a relic of a long-lost age. Sometimes his students would ask a simple question, and by the time that it had been adequately explained, they would have scores of other questions distracting them. In Neo-Nippon, on Earth, where Shimah had arrived from a completely different humanoid colony in the space cruiser Vengeance, with Skorpat, Priyanjamin and Kirsunrak's Karabas. He was explaining the development of laser technology and how microtane lasers just did not have the stopping power of broad-lens shaft laser rifles, when there was an unusual noise in the lecture hall where he instructed potential cadets for the NNSS, Neo-Nippon Special Services. Kasson, thought Shimah. The only other one is Skorpat. Realizing that Skorpat's life was surely in great peril, he dismissed his students and engaged the feature of his exoskeleton that remote-controlled the hangar and the armory in his private bunker that was located in the military precinct adjoining the Academy of Strategic Instruction. 10 minutes later, he was at the controls of a unique, bespoke, custom-engineered aero-ketch, capable of reaching the celestiosphere, the thin upper atmospheric layer that retained much of the twin ecliptical power. From there, he transmitted a signal to an orbiting satellite. It then relayed the signal to a dwarf planet on the farthest reach of the solar system, known as Nul. It was a dark and lifeless maverick planet, with an orbit that, although ultimately predictable, was so complex and interacted with so many influences that it was deemed too erratic by most to consider any viable use for a base of operations or refueling station. It was its remote, undesirable nature that made it accessible and treasured to Skorpat. He had established a headquarters there in case of inevitable interlunar and interplanetary war, a refuge and safe zone that was shrouded both physically from light and wandering eyes, but also with a blanket of Scythian umbral incantation. Carson, or more correctly Carson's facsimile of the instance when he died, was not impressed at being brought back into conscious sentience. His last thought before he died was, "If you bring me back, it will be only until what needs be done is done, and then I will return to a dormant state. A copy of me that is incomplete can never be wholly trusted to do what I would do." And this was true, especially since Kaysen was no longer composed of flesh, but a Hydes of Skorpat's associate's design, incorporated into a 5-meter-tall Atlas-class bipedal war robot armed with Hellscore splintering pole guns and a rotary Carnage polearm, with 2 massive counter-rotating spinning blades that could close against each other and articulate through many axes. Shimah had been preserved through the ages in a much more sympathetic and preservative fashion by the early techs of Neo-Nippon. Every effort had been made to preserve the genetic essence and mind of the space traveller.